Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the third edition of the Journey Podcast Wrestling. I am the one and the only, the face of JPW, Danny Barnes. And to my right, I'll let him introduce himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this podcast. I am one cliffhanger, Josh Martinez. And further down to my left is a jackass drinking Taco Bell.
How do you drink Taco Bell?
Well, he's got Baja. I would imagine he's going to drink it, and it's, like, drinkable.
Yeah, but you said he's drinking Taco Bell like there's ground-up ground beef in there, like they put it in a blender and put it in a cup.
Well, knowing this jackass...
Don't ruin Baja Blast like that.
I was going to say, this jackass would drink it in a blender if it was surgically implanted in him.
I mean, if it's anything, it's lettuce, because as we all know, lettuce is just crunchy water with no nutrients or anything, and that's why it's green. Who are you?
You guys are
Introduce yourself.
You guys are really in love with me, huh? You always have something to say about me.
Always.
It depends on the day.
Apparently, it's every day for you guys.
Introduce yourself to the people.
I'm Perez. Nothing else to say.
That's it. The self-proclaimed best of JPW is, I'm Perez, that's it, boy. You know what? That's why no one cares about you.
When you're the best, you don't need an introduction.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I saw the reports from, because management keeps us all informed. Like, I saw this non-disclosure agreement to you guys hanging out today. So the fact that you two are sitting, like, literally all day, I felt like this was handcuffed to you. So,
yeah, you can blame him.
Don't blame me. All I've been doing is speaking the truth. Like I said before, only when Perez does it, I get in trouble.
I'm not going to get into this because we already had to deal with each other all day. And again, that's your fault.
Can I ask what you guys did all day to kind of almost mend fences? I'll be mediator here. I mean, if we're going to get to the next topic, just to kind of go over what you guys have done.
Well, we went on a car ride.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had lunch. We saw this guy that was blue. We walked down a park. It was great.
I was getting concerned about your sky because sometimes it's green, yellow, red, the rainbows.
All I'm going to say is that I actually didn't hate my day today. There was, at least in my opinion, some middle ground finally found. I don't know how he feels, and personally, I really don't care. Because if I'm being totally honest, I'm just really sick and tired of his crap. Because everything that comes out of his mouth is exactly that.
Well, let's be fair. I mean, you guys have some animosity. I see that. It's in the backstage. It translates. I'm just going to be completely frank and honest. You guys work really well in the ring together. You guys put on slobber knockers, as to Jim Ross, the grand poobah of commentary, would say. I think you guys probably needed this, but to TBD, right? To be determined kind of thing. So, in this podcast, I feel like we need to talk about a couple of things. Ground Zero. Ground Zero is coming up. I know for a fact I'm feeling fantastic about it.
December 3rd. That's not the posting date. It's just the date of the actual event on when it takes place, just in case anybody is wondering. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a restart for the brand, and it's going to be a reset for the company that is so desperately needed.
Here we got Snuffleupagus.
Well, because he has no respect for the business. He has no respect for the company. He has no respect for himself, clearly, because if he had any sort of respect for himself, he wouldn't be talking all the crap. He has no self-respect. Again, I'm not going to get into it because we already had to deal with each other all day, and I'm going to sit here and enjoy the podcast as much as I can with you, and I'll try with him.
Well, I mean, I think it goes to show, and I think we've discussed this on multiple podcast platforms, and even in that ring. I mean, we're related. There's no doubt about that. We get along with each other pretty well in the atmosphere of JPW. Perez, I'm not gonna lie, you've kind of tickled my bubble to pop it in a negative, and I think that's gonna have to be blown in some kind of proportion where we can explain that later. But here's the bottom line: Ground Zero for me is going to be an honor. It's going to be a privilege because I think we get so many people who chant JPW. As a matter of fact, I sent management a message. I was messing with a customer tonight. I work in retail. I won't disclose who I work for, but the customer comes up to me and he's like, yeah, I'm interested in watching what you guys do. He types it up in his Google search bar. He says, what's the name? And I said, it's JPW. You're looking for Journey Pro Wrestling. Types it up. Literally, guys, we are the first thing that comes up on that Google bar. And I can't.
Because the company sucks so bad.
Whoa, wait a minute. Now, okay, so let's say this for a minute. Let's say the company does suck. What positive do you get from it being that it's, to your words, suck, garbage? What do you get from that? What feeling, what satisfaction do you get from calling JPW garbage? It's giving you a platform. I just want to know.
It gives me clout.
Of
That way when I'm big enough.
Of course it gives you clout. That's all you care about is clout.
You take
Again,
right.
because you have no respect for what we do. You have no respect for yourself. You have no respect for this company. You have no respect. But look, I told you earlier today is that you're a very valuable asset to this company, which is exactly why you're not being let go of your contract, whether you like it or not.
See, and let me ask you, what benefit do you get out of sucking up to these 3 letters so much? Why do you hold it so good?
I work my ass off day in and day out, and I have been for the past 8 years with this company. And
It's
oh by the way, it might be getting worse for you, but that's because you're not first in line for the JPW Undisputed Championship. It's me.
You mean
because again, I beat you at Journey to Hell.
You mean that piece of plastic that Jay Xavier holds that he can't hold with his own 2 hands?
It's a piece of course it's a piece of plastic to you because you've never held it. You don't know the real weight of it.
I mean, devil's advocate. I will play devil's advocate.
Why would I want to hold that piece of plastic when I can much rather go to Walmart and buy a cheap toy belt that has way more prestige than this
You would
one?
rather hold a piece of plastic that has a ho-ho in it and eat your fucking way to nothingness. Because that's what you are. You're nothing.
But even if I did that, I'm still better than both of you combined, so it doesn't matter.
Whoa.
I have more important matters to worry about in Jay Xavier because, oh, by the way, for some reason, he decided that he was going to turn his back on his best friend
I don't know
instead of worrying about you. I don't need to worry about you.
Well, let's talk about Jay Xavier for a minute here. Like, who the hell is this big guy coming in? Like, I was not anticipating that. I don't think anybody was. As a matter of fact, the offer is out there. If one Danny Barnes wants help, I know.
I know where you're going with that, and honestly, I don't need it. I don't need the help. You want to know why I don't need the help?
that.
I can hold my own inside and outside of that ring every single
because
time.
you're Danny Barnes.
That's right. Yeah, you're damn straight. I'm Danny Barnes. That's right. And every single time I walk out there, who do they chant for? Me. And whether you like it or not, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to admit it, but for some reason, they also chant your name. I don't know why, and I really don't care.
You know, sometimes I travel in the multiverse.
You would only care if it was just you getting chanted out there. I know you.
See, no, I care about everybody in this company except for you, and except for Jay Xavier. And you know what? I've had previous beef with Zion Phoenix. I've had previous beef with Cliffhanger. I've never really had any beef with Drake Adams because I've never had the chance of actually punching him in the fucking mouth.
I mean, to be fair,
Okay.
Drake Adams is really, not here, but neither here or there. I mean, I know we got more topics to cover, but, with Ground Zero coming up, December 3rd, that's when people are showing up. That's where people are going to be chanting. That's when people are going to give their support. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm excited. I know Danny Barnes is excited. And I know deep down in his, you're a mean one, heart, the Grinch over here is probably going to be really ecstatic. And deep down, it's really deep down in his fuzzy 3 sizes, smaller than his thumb dick of a heart. So, with that being said,
yeah, I am excited. By the way, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm excited. I'm excited to bash Jay Xavier's face in, and I'm excited to take that belt off of him and actually make that championship mean something. Because Drake Adams and Jay Xavier don't know how to put respect on that title.
I couldn't have said it any better. My thoughts and feelings aside, it's not about my thoughts and feelings on the world title. As long as the world title comes to some respect and some prestige, I remember when we were starting, and I remember when, it was all in the mattresses. And to be completely fair, guys, we had a milestone. January to December is almost a whole calendar year of wrestling for us. That's the first time in our ring, at least. I've heard the stories, and good, bad, or indifferent. Here's the thing about that: I was gone away, and I'm very humbled to be back in something that I love and that I can give respect to. And even though there's animosity here, even though there's a royal beef here, I will say that you two have put on clinics. Not just showstoppers, not just great matches. You guys have put on clinics every time you get into that ring with each other. It's almost like having an answer for a mathematical equation that you would think you have the answer for. And it's amazing to see that, because this is the first time, January to December, we've had our ring, matches included. It's been a phenomenal time. It's been a phenomenal year. And I'm grateful that Ground Zero coming December 3rd, great stuff. I think, excuse me if I may, we've got some good stuff coming down the pike. I know you're in the main event match with Jay Xavier. Perez, depending on how the hell you actually feel that day, maybe you might take the tampon right out of your bloody crack and run with what you got, because even I don't know the opponent, and I mean Danny Barnes probably doesn't know the opponent, but let's see who steps up to the plate.
Pretty sure that bloody tampon will take me so much more further.
I'm sure it's going to soak up the crowd.
And let me get this out the way. While you may think you're buttering me up and you may have listened to my words of giving me my flowers, I don't want your flowers. 1, I beat you up too many times. 2, you cry like a little baby when you don't get your way. And 3, the 2 people that do cheer for you, no one sees in the crowd. So, thank you, but no thank you. And you know what, Danny Barnes? I don't even want your flowers. Because 1, they're fake from the dollar store that don't even look that pretty. Might as well go to Publix and get a bigger bouquet.
You're not worth the time nor the energy for me to go to Publix and get you a bouquet of their shitty, dead flowers.
And by the way,
you complain about not getting your flowers, but then when someone tries to extend the flowers to you, you still won't accept it.
And by the way, Publix, if you guys are not familiar, you are listening, it's a Central Florida chain that has grown to Tennessee. Publix, check it out if you get a chance.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. Not a plug for them, but just to give you guys a kind of an idea.
But they do have great chicken tender subs.
I agree. I think we can all agree to that. That's pretty good stuff.
And even though Perez and I hate each other, he also enjoys the occasional chicken tender pub sub.
So I think moving along here, I think Ground Zero, making sure that event is very well versed. Again, December 3rd, you get to see all your favorite JPW guys putting out their blood, sweat, and tears in that ring. Where's it at again? It's in Mineola, right? It's here.
It will be here in Mineola. Again, like most of our shows, we did a show last month called Popomania, in which we honored the life of Jay Xavier's father, and I had one hell of a match with him. And I still will hold that match very near and dear to my heart. And I still love his family and I still love his father. But I don't love what Jay did to me after that, because I thought we were having a moment. I wanted to say a few nice, a few words that were nice. And like always, Jay, for some reason, makes it about himself. And you'll see me do a video soon on how I feel about that. This is not the platform for that.
Well, I mean, what is a platform is, I think that just because of JPW, I think we can all agree we love the art and the entertainment and the sport of professional wrestling. Having said that, I think there's a lot of things in the world of professional wrestling that is kind of, in this week alone, actually preceding from last Friday, because I think we can all admit, I would ask Perez if he was feeling oozy, but that's not for me to ask. But I think, without a shadow of a doubt, we can talk about all things wrestling, just because of, JPW, our extensive olive branch.
What now, Danny Barnes? Why are you looking at me so much?
That was...
Quit looking at me.
Just
I can taste the nacho fries bleeding from your beard, from your mouth.
He wouldn't shut up about it all day.
Because again, at least Taco Bell respects their people.
Huh. Okay.
Actually,
Whatever.
a funny story about Taco Bell. We walked into a Taco Bell, Danny Barnes and I, and we decided we were going to get some burritos before training. Little known fact, don't do that. But the entertainment value that you get from a Taco Bell, it outweighs some of the things that we do sometimes, just comedically. Their old grandma, she goes and says, "Is that my burrito right there?" Guy goes, "That's my burrito right there." And I sit there and I say, and I'm really trying to, and you can ask Danny, I was trying my hardest to hold in my laughter in public because Danny Barnes, he's like, "Well, we're going to go inside." This guy, little known fact about Danny Barnes, he hates drive-thrus. I don't know what the hell it is. Drive-thrus don't mix well with Danny Barnes. He can wrestle in front of a crowd. He can wrestle in front of people that are not even near and dear to him.
I don't like talking to people.
But talking to people
outside of wrestling.
But that's our business. We talk and we bullshit and we make sure that people understand where we're at. But God bless it. You know what? That was a good day. I even looked at him and said, "Whose idea was to fucking come in here and get Taco Bell?" Because you heard, listen, you want to go to Disney World and get entertained. You want to go to Universal and get entertained. You want to watch a movie and get entertained. I had a better time at Taco Bell than I would with Wonder Woman 84.
Taco Bell, also not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. We're not
But
sponsored.
they do have great grilled cheese burritos. That's my favorite
God, can I say
thing
how
on
much?
the menu.
That is really good. I mean, I spent $30 at Taco Bell.
How do you
that day.
spend $30 at a Taco
Listen,
Bell? Everything
when-
on there is like $1 to $5.
No. Well, here's the thing. When one cliffhanger spends money, he spends money really hard. And he spends money on the good stuff. You get a double steak burrito. You get 3 of those. Extra steak.
They had to cut the cow.
They're right. I heard the moose in
We
the background.
waited for 30 minutes because you had to order 3 double steak grilled cheese burritos.
And you know what that cow...
I heard the cow going moo.
And you know what? That cow... That cow, no shit. That benefited me. Let me tell you something. That protein and the gun's blazing right there. So I had 3 of those.
How's that Baja Blast? Not sponsored.
There's going to be a quote in this which relies on the fact that, we're talking about, back to the, we circle around and, Usyk. Let's go back to Usyk for a minute. Let's start down the line with Perez. My thoughts and feelings aside, I saw this clip. I was laughing my ass off, but I wasn't laughing my ass off because it was funny by itself. I was laughing because that was the first time in a very, very long time that you've seen good chemistry. Not just wrestlers doing their thing, putting on a show and making these guys, go home with a smile on their face. And that's a moment. That is a moment I will forever remember. It's been a very long time. So that's my thought and feeling on it. Let's go down the line. Perez, what are your thoughts and feelings on that?
I think while that segment is very entertaining, no one's going to argue that, I'm going to one-up your statement. Sami Zayn taught everybody a very, very important lesson in delivery. Because anybody could write anything. It can be funny, it can be serious, it can be motivational. But the way you deliver a message is going to affect the execution of it. What is the one important thing when he said he's not feeling very Usyk?
No, he paused.
Exactly. And he didn't change his pitch. He didn't change his aggression. It wasn't body language. It was that slight pause and then a little tweak to his voice. Not a vocal pitch, a tweak to his voice. So that is, in my opinion, the most important part of that entire segment while being very entertaining.
I'm going to one-up both of you guys. Respectfully. Not only was it good chemistry, not only was it good delivery and good timing, but what they're doing with Sami Zayn and giving him that platform to shine. I mean, he's always been great. He's always been great on the mic. He's always been great in the ring. And now they're finally giving him that platform to do it is absolutely amazing. And I think, all joking aside, him being paired up with the Bloodline is, in my opinion, the best thing in wrestling right now, specifically in WWE.
So I'm actually gonna ask another question because I think it's a very important question because believe it or not, Perez and I, we see eye to eye to some point. Don't ask me how we do this, but we see eye to eye on certain things. But this thing we see eye to eye on. With it all being said and done with Sami Zayn, do you think that platform would have been given had Vince McMahon? And think about this. Vince McMahon is not with the company as far as we know. But if you think about it, do you think that has more or less to do with now Triple H understanding what WWE has for talent to give platforms like Sami Zayn? And I would say the Bloodline too, because look at the Usos. The Usos, before they were comical, and I say comical, not funny, but comical as in like comic booky, flashy, cartoony kind of things to kind of get themselves noticed, like you remember them. Is that something that has helped Sami Zayn, along with the Usos, I'd say, because that fuse it within? Is that a Triple H thing, understanding what he has in his toolbox, versus a Vince McMahon being kind of stubborn and trying to look for his protege, so to speak? I mean, you look at John Cena being a protege, you look at Hulk Hogan being a protege. I'd even go as far as saying Stone Cold and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being proteges as well. Is that a toolbox for Triple H to say, hey, this is what we have? Or is this a Vince McMahon thing where it's like, I don't give that chance to one like Sami Zayn or even the Usos?
For sure, more. Because with Vince, I think he would have done something to this level, yet bring the bar a little bit lower. Because again, in his head, comedy is one way. And obviously with someone like Triple H who's a bit more in touch, his comedy is on that same bar, but the bar is not the exact same bar. Like, if he has this steel rod, Vince McMahon, Triple H, let's change that from a steel rod to any other rod from Home Depot. It's still a bar, it's still comedy, and it's still going to be at the same level. It's just not the same material. So I think for sure it could have been the same, but it wouldn't have been as blossomful as it is now. Because Triple H likes for all the petals to blossom, where Vince only wants the blossoms or the petals to blossom a certain way. Because if it doesn't blossom that way, he takes that and throws it away and tries to get another flower.
You got a lot of flower gimmick right here, so I don't know if that's a future thing going forward for you, but I honestly can see where you're going with it, and I honor and respect that opinion because I kind of feel the same way. Now, Danny Barnes, the question's for you.
I don't think it would have been the same if Vince was behind it, to be honest. Because let's look at the evidence here, and this is why I say this. Sami Zayn was nowhere near the Bloodline when Vince was still there. Like, nowhere near. There wasn't even a tease. There wasn't any sort of idea that you would get to be like, oh, Sami Zayn's going to be a part of the Bloodline. There was nothing. There was nothing. Not only that, but let's look at Sami Zayn's run with NXT back when it was coming up very quickly and very strongly. Sami had one of the best careers down there. One of the best careers down there in NXT. He had a lot of 4 and 5 and some 6-star matches.
The match
down there.
The match that you say that, and I remember, like, as soon as you said it, the stuff that he did with Kevin Owens.
It's the stuff that he did with Cesaro.
And Neville
was phenomenal. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And
one shot too. First time working together in NXT that wasn't even NXT.
Right. He got to the main roster at some point, and he had, I'm not going to say a lackluster run, but I am going to say an okay run for a little bit. And then he just kind of, I felt like he kind of gotten forgotten about. And I have to say, this past year's WrestleMania, when they had him in a feud with Johnny Knoxville, of all people, brought new life into his persona and into his in-ring ability and into his career altogether. Because, in my personal opinion, this WrestleMania was by far the best I've seen in a long time.
Well, and to even piggyback on that, it was the three of us that watched WrestleMania, both parts. We watched that match, and we came down to a certain science when it came to that match. That match was why sports entertainment has the entertainment next to that sport, that title.
Well, the thing about wrestling is that you don't always need it to be serious all the time. Because if it's serious all the time, people get bored. Right? That's the thing. People will get bored. So you have to be inventive. You have to reinvent yourself, and you have to change it up. Right? Because without that change, again, people will get bored. But the minute you do something ridiculous, like being in a match with Johnny Knoxville on the grandest stage of them all, could have been anybody, but it just so happened to be Sami Zayn, which I think was the perfect choice. Again, it was amazing, and it brought new life into his career. And I think that was the best move for Sami, and that was Vince's show. Who, little did we know, months later, we'd see one of the best factions that we've seen on TV in a long time with the Bloodline. And oh, by the way, might I add, the fact that Sami Zayn came out and said that his goal is to make the Bloodline break character is fantastic. Because him to sit there and be like, he just hasn't been feeling very oozy lately, pause, was gold.
Well, I think the fact that you take a really good promo class and you kind of have to let it marinate. And by God, he let that thing marinate. And I'm telling you, me watching it, and this is coming from someone that I can actually sit down. Before I'm a worker, I'm a fan. That's one of the many reasons why we get into what we get into is because we're fans. We love what we do. And I, for the first time, felt like I was a kid watching Monday Night Raw when Carlito was feuding with John Cena. That was really what that felt like. Because that feud, even though it was mediocre for some aspects, for me, that was entertaining. And it is very memorable. That is never going to go away. I think that's going to be the highlight for Sami Zayn for a very, very long time.
It's going to be a really sad day when they turn on him.
Well, I mean, maybe we'll see something on tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon at 12 o'clock on Peacock is Crown Jewel, and I think this is going to be the perfect segue to get into... I don't want to know... not saying I don't want to know, but I particularly have been paying attention to the Monday Night Raw side of the fence of the WWE under Triple H's creative regime. But I'm going to be honest with you. There's only two matches that I think we can kind of play prediction on, and I just want to go over the first match before we go into that, and let's talk about the Bloodline one more time. You got Logan Paul, who's only wrestled 3 matches in his WWE career. 2 of those matches were with The Miz, one tagging and one opposing, and now he's tackling Roman Reigns. He's tackling the Bloodline for not only the WWE Championship, but the big one, the unified World Wrestling Entertainment Universal Championship, undisputed. I mean, Me personally, I don't know how that can go. I mean, I'm not saying in any discredit that Logan Paul doesn't have pins in his fingers, that he can knock him out 1, 2, 3. I think it's going to be the battle of the knockout. I think it's going to be the battle of who can land a punch first. So with that being said, let's switch it up. Danny Barnes, what is your take on that match? And then who do you think's going to win?
Well, first off, let me start off by saying Logan Paul in his matches with WWE and even some of his promo work and as people would say, behind the scenes videos of him training, he's been very, very impressive. Like, admittedly, he's been very impressive. He's earned my respect. He's put a lot of work in, more than initially thought. And again, it's honestly what he's been doing has been very impressive. And I think for him to be in a match with Roman for the titles, I do think it is, as Perez would say, for clout, because it's a celebrity versus one of the biggest stars in today's era of wrestling in Saudi Arabia, and they make so much money over there. So I think again, I think it is for publicity. But I think it's going to be a decent match. I don't think it's going to be a bad match. I don't think Jake Paul should be there in Logan's corner. That's my personal opinion. I think Jake has so many other things that he could be doing that is not involving with professional wrestling. I think that Logan has... I don't even know why I feel this way, but I do. I really feel like Logan has a good shot at actually beating Roman. If it's done right, I'm not saying it's the right move, but I'm saying that in pro wrestling, there's always a chance. And for some reason, there's a part of me that's saying Logan might actually win this match. I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way. But I think it would be so unpredictable that it's predictable. I don't think that he would hold the championships for very long if he did win. I don't necessarily think he is going to win. I think Roman's going to keep the championships until WrestleMania at the very least. And I think it would be perfect for Cody to come back at the Royal Rumble and beat Roman for the championships at WrestleMania. But that's a whole completely different topic for a whole completely different podcast.
Well, I think if we're going to segue into that just for a hot moment, I think what we're going to see for Triple H's WWE versus Vince McMahon's WWE, he's still working with what Vince had already, and we can see the transformations. I don't think we're going to see Triple H's full-on WWE until we see the Royal Rumble. So
I don't disagree with that. But I do think that the match is going to be decent. I don't think it's going to be the best match I've ever seen, but I think it's going to be a really good match. It might be the match of the night. It might not be. But we'll see.
Well, I mean, with that being said, I mean, there's a lot to be said about that. I mean, I pose a question to you, Perez. Knowing that you do pay attention to this stuff as well, you and I were joking about it and falling asleep to it because I do see the slump, and I'm hoping that they fix that. But again, that we can discuss that later, along with the Royal Rumble predictions, because I'm assuming we're going to do something for the Royal Rumble. Can't say that 5 times fast. What is your how do you feel, and what's your prediction?
I just hope that Roman doesn't lose. I don't think it'll be a right decision to have Logan Paul beat Roman Reigns, especially because right now he is at a very high performance level. Obviously, to Danny Barnes' point, I'm not saying it's the right decision. I just don't want it to happen.
I don't want it to happen either, but could you see it happening? I mean, realistically.
I see it happening, but I also see, and this is actually be another question, so I don't want to really go into what my thought process is for it, but I do see it happening. I do see it happening with some twist, and we'll go over that twist in a minute. But aside from that, any more insight from that? I mean, I feel like there's a lot more than just Roman tackling it on. I mean, you got Jake Paul. I mean, there's a lot of stipulation right there.
I think Roman has the very, very easy job of making Logan Paul look like $1 million. Now, I am not a Logan Paul fan, never have been, never will be, but just like everybody else, I'd be lying if I would say I wasn't impressed with his matches. Again, they're not my favorite matches, but when I put my biasy aside, he has put on good performances.
He kind of reminds me of what Bad Bunny did, and and we all thought like, oh God, it's another celebrity. Right. It's not gonna be, it's just froth. It's what you find at the head of a beer, froth, or however you want to, say it. But Bad Bunny did really good. Yeah. He wrestled really well, and Logan Paul did the same thing. I think did it even 10 times better.
To let it be known, as great as Bad Bunny did, which he did, I want to congratulate The Miz for making him look way better than what he probably should have. And I mean Bad Bunny, and then what The Miz chose to do.
So if Miz's balls are big, we know who's sucking them.
You're damn right. I'm probably one of them. Because again, no one... And this is why I relate to The Miz, is because no one likes to say how good he is. People like to laugh at him. He has been in the game for a long time, and only one place. I understand that. But, again, when he's in the ring, he's not the flashiest, but he makes his opponent look good in every which way.
And
The Miz has always been underrated.
He's always been underrated.
And he can... he can attest
Danny
to this.
Danny Barnes has been a bona fide Miz fan since day one.
And you know that as well. Like, I love The Miz. Mm-hmm. He's always been so good, and he's always been great on the mic. He's always been great in the ring, and yeah, to your point, he's not always been the flashiest, but damn, does he know how to make his opponent look good.
So my rule of thumb when it comes to professional wrestlers in general, and I mean every one of them, you can go from the backyarders, you can go from the up-and-comers, like what we're trying to do and what we're trying to personify, and you can go to the professionals like WWE, you can go to AEW, Impact. I legit respect anybody who steps between those ropes and does what they do, because it's not easy. It is never easy. And I'm not talking about the people, and I'll look at you dead in the camera, I'm not talking about you jackasses who decide they're going to throw mercury light bulbs and hope to live the next day, knowing that you didn't drain the poison from those, because we don't do particularly hardcore matches like that. We don't need that shit. But what I will say is this, and I'll look you dead in the camera here, and for the viewers at home, imagining what I'm doing to this camera, Miz is one of the safest workers that I've ever seen and ever heard of, because he rarely gets hurt. He rarely puts people in the hospital. He rarely does a lot of stupid shit. I mean, give an opinion, positive or negative. And that consequence of The Miz, either way, and I know that a consequence, and this is the one thing I was taught about consequence, the word, is that it does have harshness, but there is positivity to that. Positive or negative, The Miz is probably one of the best WWE performers of all time. In this modern age, I should say.
He will be in the Hall of Fame.
He will be in the Hall of Fame.
And he doesn't get told that enough. And that bothers me as a fan, a supporter, and as a avid viewer of professional wrestling. Because, fun fact about me, I guess I'll pull the curtain back for me. I've been watching wrestling for 13 years, I want to say. But the amount of content I consume, it probably levels to about 50, 60 years of professional wrestling. Because unlike these guys next to me, which shame on them, I watch a little bit of everything. I obviously don't love everything, but if you could sit me down and watch it, I will get lost in it. I don't care. It could be probably one of my worst enemies in life. If they want to sit down and watch a show with me, I will happily educate them on why it is I love what I watch.
Well, and I think to that point too, and I think so. We're gonna go with Danny Barnes going for Logan Paul. We're gonna go for the opposite here.
I never said I was going for Logan Paul.
Uh-oh.
I said that there's a chance.
So
there's always a chance.
So I think if we're gonna do, the NFL, they like to go and do streaks and they like to play some games with this. But Roman, Logan, what you got?
Roman, 100%.
Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn.
You think he's gonna do something silly?
I don't know if he'll do something. I mean, well, okay, Sami, he always does something silly, but I think if they play their cards right, Bloodline turns on Sami at some point. Sami and Roman have a banger match.
Or do you think with tomorrow afternoon, well, technically tomorrow night for them, that if Sami Zayn and Jey Uso start their bickering, does it cost Roman? Not that I'm manifesting this. I'm not putting it in the universe.
So I actually want to.
Just saying.
For the simple answer, I will go with Roman. I'll get that out of the way. For the simple answer, I'll go with Roman. More complex answer, I think. Somewhere down the line, there needs to be a match between Sami and Roman.
I honestly think that match is going to happen. Is that going to happen right after Logan Paul? You bet your ass is going to happen after Logan Paul, or shortly after.
Nah, Sami Zayn needs to become Sami Uso before that match happens.
Nah, everybody's got to be Uso first.
I don't think it'll happen at WrestleMania.
No.
I
think it needs to be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the championship.
And he has to pull a doubleheader that day.
Right. I think
he has to.
I think that is the way Roman drops the championships, is to Cody Rhodes. I could be wrong. I don't know what's going to happen when WrestleMania comes around the corner. I don't work for WWE. I don't have the inside scoop. That's my prediction, and I think that should happen. And Roman could take his flowers and take a long, well-needed rest because he's been working his ass off ever since he came back in 2020.
Well, I'll be completely fair. There's a difference between working your ass off and throwing your flowers out there. I'm going to throw the curveball out there because we really haven't discussed this, but I think this is going to be this is how I ask my associates at work, under over. This is going to be the twist that we talk about, whether it's Sami Zayn getting involved or Jake Paul getting involved. I think we're going to see some elements in there, but me personally, over, under, do you see Austin Theory cashing in Money in the Bank? Under, over? Under meaning he's not going to do it. Over meaning he's going to do it.
I think that's somewhere in the middle. I think it's going to be an attempt, and he's not going to be able to, just like he did at Clash at the Castle.
Sure, yeah, I remember that.
I think it'll be a very similar situation.
I think I'm gonna go left field with it. I think Austin Theory is gonna run down to the ring. Jake Paul is gonna stop him in his tracks and says, "Not while my brother's in the match." Then he's gonna say, do some gimmick, get out my way type stuff. Jake Paul will turn him around and hit him with the right, and that'll build either towards the Rumble. I think WrestleMania is too far out, but I think Jake's gonna have another day.
Well, I was gonna say, I think it needs to be said that Jake Paul, even though it's not been officially announced, he's got some kind of working relationship with WWE because of his brother. Kudos to him. I will say congratulations, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter how they feel. It's in the record books. You beat Anderson Silva. Congratulations, you did the job. And I think the next match that we can predict, this is actually a pretty fun one. As we were talking about before the podcast even started, the SmackDown versus Raw 2008 or 2007 or whatever you want to say, but it's the old video games. You got Brock Lesnar, you got Bobby Lashley. Let's go ahead. Let's not mince words here. I think it's going to be a Brock Lesnar night. Honestly, when I think of that feud, the fantasy booking of me would have been Dave Bautista versus Brock Lesnar. But that would have been way back when they were both in their prime getting jump-started. That's my thought and feeling. And to piggyback off of what we were talking about with Roman Reigns and Logan Paul, I'm going to go ahead and say Roman. I don't want to see this end just yet, just because maybe we see something down the line with the Great One. But again, that's another foreshadowing.
You know, I mean, there's always a possibility of Roman dropping the championships before WrestleMania, and it does end up being The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania.
Just by
you know,
itself.
who's the real head of the table? Who's the real tribal chief? You know, and that's a conversation all on its own. That's an hour conversation just by itself, just because of how both of their careers have gone and are going. You know, but that's beside the point. But going from Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley, from my standpoint, and this is going to be so unpopular, and I really don't care. The older I get, the more I realize I really don't care. And that's exactly how I feel about the match. I don't care. That's my personal opinion. Take it or leave it. Because, for me, that match should have happened when they were in their prime.
Bobby and Brock you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. I'm not saying that they're not great still. They're still really good performers. 100%. For me, it's 20 years too late.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the fantasy booking would have...
At least 15 years.
I disagree with you. I think I'd much rather see them compete now because they were, rookies around the same time. They both left for MMA. They both succeeded 2 different ways. Now they come back to professional wrestling with all this experience. I'd much rather see them fight now. And the first time we got it, I am in the very, very few minority that didn't have a problem with that match. How it played, how the storyline, it could have been better. But the match itself, I actually don't see a problem with. Because it was the same as Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal. I love how that played out. Does it seem kind of, did it fall short to a lot of expectations? Maybe, but not for me.
I think with that match that you just described with Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre, I think that was a match that I don't think anybody was really ready for. Because I base this, and I mean no disrespect towards anybody involved nationality-wise, but when you think of World Wrestling Entertainment, international guys don't get their due. They really don't.
Right.
And for me...
Especially in WWE.
Especially in WWE. Especially of Jinder's descent. Especially in... Drew's descent. So I mean, it wasn't weird in a negative. It was weird in a positive, because you've never seen it. You've never seen it before. So to your point, because I can see both points here. Again, my fantasy booking would have been Batista versus Brock Lesnar.
Well, you just love Batista.
I'm a big Batista fan, but I will say this: Bobby now is at the best of his career. I do have a firm belief that if you leave WWE and you do other things, and you say to yourself, the grass is greener on the other side, but you learn your lessons to get back to the pasture. I think that's what Bobby did. I think Bobby learned his lessons to get back into the pasture, and he got signed under Vince McMahon. Now Triple H doing what he's doing, and then we have to really put this apples to oranges comparison out there, because, again, the biggest elephant in the room is who would have thought Vince McMahon would have retired the way that he did, and oh, by the way, no one thought he would retire. Everybody thought he would die in the chair. And I think the way that
they're literally in the chair.
But you're right. But I think there's a misconception out there with what Vince was trying to do and what Triple H is doing. Triple H actually wrestled. Paul Levesque wrestled. Vince McMahon, he did a couple of things. He got enough to get by. He had enough training to do what he needed to do to get the job done. But he didn't understand the real psychology of a wrestler.
So, but I mean, it doesn't matter that Triple H wrestled. It matters who he's wrestled, and it matters for how long he wrestled, because he could have wrestled for 5 years.
Do you guys remember the Reign of Terror of Triple H? Where, again, I don't even know how they even got to that point. The Reign of Terror.
But I mean, let's look at it like this, right? Triple H could have wrestled for 5 years, and he could have had the Vince McMahon mindset of that old school mindset. But he wrestled for so long that And as we all know, wrestling evolves over time and it changes, and the way that it's run, especially in the back, is so different than what it was even 5 years ago, let alone 20.
You know what I mean?
And so like you look at like matches like Triple H versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 33. Great match, at least in my opinion. Not match of the night. I think match of the night for that, off topic, AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon opening match. I think that was a match of the night. That was crazy. But Triple H versus Seth Rollins. I mean, Triple H was wrestling new guys. He wrestled Daniel Bryan back when he was with WWE. Bryan Danielson now, who cares, same guy. Also, a great match. He's wrestled these young guys, so he knows that it evolves. And not only that, but he works so closely with a lot of people in NXT who are either now making really good moves on main roster with WWE, or some of those people jump ship to AEW. And he worked with a lot of those guys, and a lot of those guys had to scratch and claw their way to the top.
Well, and we're going to talk about AEW in a hot minute, because I think that's a very important topic of conversation here.
I don't think AEW is the same as it was after Cody left. I think that's just the way I feel.
And I think we've talked about it before the podcast, and we've talked about it numerous times behind closed doors. There had to be a conversation, but I just want to put this comparison out there, because we're all comic book fans. We're all MCU fans. The way that Triple H and Vince McMahon's relationship is the scene from Black Panther, where T'Challa goes to the ancestral plane after the second time he goes, and you got Vince McMahon being the father, who you thought he was doing right, and you get T'Challa in this respect saying, we cannot do it this way. This is not the way we do this. We cannot go forward and think that this is the right way. And I think that's what Triple H is doing. I think Triple H is exactly doing that. And for me, that warms my heart, because this is the first time, and off the character, by the way, this is the first time I've paid attention to Monday Night Raw in years. And I used to be the guy who sat down and I would post on Facebook, this was religion for almost 5 years. Monday Night Raw. 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, Monday Night Raw, because it was exciting. It was riveting.
You did that with...
I did it with everything.
Raw, SmackDown,
everything.
ECW, when that was a thing.
And
which ECW?
Or, oh God,
Vince's.
Not Paul Heyman's. But I will say that the excitement level when, because when we're kids and we think larger than life, we think of the positivity behind larger than life. We think of the moments that get us out of the ruts, that get us out and get us going. And I'm telling you, I think to the comparison of the MCU, I think Triple H T'Challa is learning that is not the way. We can take lessons and we can make them our own. Because I'll give Triple H a lot of credit here. A lot of the wrestlers that he signed on could have told him, hey, what's the difference between you and him? You're related to him.
And he's been in WWE for so long.
Yeah.
Really, that's all he knows is WWE.
Yeah.
I just really love the fact that that everybody thought that, all right, well, when Vince is done, Triple H is going to take over, and he's the doofus son-in-law. Ha ha ha. If you know the reference, you know the reference.
Again, another hot minute before we get to that.
I ain't even talking about that.
No, me neither.
Not
worth my time. But, you got people who say Triple H is the doofus son-in-law, but ever since he's been in charge, he's just been making good call after good call after good call after good call. He's taking what Vince did, twisting it, and I think I think you bring up a good point. I think we'll see a real change when Rumble hits and WrestleMania season hits. That's when the real change settles in, because that's the Rumble every year for them is the reset.
Well, and that, the other thing too is and to that point you look at it, SummerSlam was still Vince McMahon's. It was that oh my God, like this is Triple H's first. A lot of people saw it that way. No, it was really Triple H putting his fingerprints on it now, and it's still Vince's show. Clash of the Castle, I could say the same thing. Although Clash of the Castle was something that could have been really bad. This is why I bring up Crown Jewel in predictions, because Crown Jewel, there's no legends to sell Saudi Arabia. That was the reason why they signed those contracts, was to get legends like The Undertaker and Triple H. Stuff that in the 90s and in the early 2000s would have worked perfectly fine. But you have older people doing these things. On paper, it looks great. Physically, not so much. This actually feels like it fits part of that storyline to WrestleMania. And this is part of Roman's conquest. I love every minute of it. I think if the show is surrounded by a cast of wrestlers who can support that, I think Crown Jewel is probably going to be one of the better premium events. We're not calling it pay-per-views anymore. We're calling it premium events because WWE has made it very well known that you easily can buy $9.99 on Peacock. Not that we're plugging that.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor either.
Peacock.
But I got to be honest with you. Watching Peacock and watching what they've done with, even though there's some hiccups, but that's because everybody watches it. It looks like you watch it on TV, and that's what I love about what's happening. The evolution of what the WWE is going to. Now let's move over to the next side of the fence, and that's AEW. And make no bones about it, there were some decisions that were made in the last couple of weeks. We're not going to talk about the Brawl Out. I feel like that's covered enough in every other platform, whether you watch Wrestle Talk, Jim Cornette. You can watch any one of those, and they have a different take on everything. I don't want to talk about that because that's a mixed opinion. It's a mixed bag. Jeff Jarrett. That's what we want to talk about. That is the main event right now, is Jeff Jarrett not just debuting in AEW, but becoming the business director of AEW. Now look.
Wrong move.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Well, Jeff, here's the thing about Jeff Jarrett. Okay? Jeff Jarrett was never a bad in-ring competitor. He was never horrible on the mic. He's been in the business a long time. He made it very well known that not only has he been in the business a very long time, but his family's been in the business since the 40s.
According to AEW.
You know? And,
According to
his fingerprints are all over the business.
Well, and
but the thing is this. I don't know what they're thinking right now. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about AEW right now because I'm going to be honest. I haven't been keeping up with it as much as I should be because it's just not the same anymore. The only real thing that I care about going on right now is MJF versus Jon Moxley at Full Gear. It's the only thing I care about. I really don't care that Jeff Jarrett signed with AEW. I don't care what contract he has. I don't care what it says in his contract. But what I will say is the promo that he cut on Wednesday made no sense. I found myself watching the promo and I could not fully be engaged. I could not listen properly because it just was all over the place. And Jeff Jarrett's been in the business a very, very long time. He knows how to cut a better promo. He's done it. But the other problem is that he created a rival company back in the early 2000s, very early 2000s, with TNA, Impact Wrestling, which is now just known as Impact Wrestling. And, when that was made, it was, the hottest shit, pretty much, because of all the, really young talent. A few years go by, He's no longer the owner of TNA Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to call it.
At the time, it was TNA.
You know, he didn't own it anymore, and then he just kind of fell by the wayside, and then out of nowhere he comes back out of nowhere and makes another company called Global Force Wrestling, which tanked so fast, and now he's with AEW, and I'm not gonna say that AEW is gonna fail. I don't think that they will. I think that they still make a lot of money. I still think that they have more or less a good head on their shoulders. Not really saying in particular who, but there are people back there who do really care about that company, and I'm all for it. I want them to thrive. I want every business in wrestling to thrive, because without it, you don't have a rival. You need rivals because you need to be able to do what that other company down the street isn't doing. You have to be different. And I'm all for AEW being different. But what I will say, again, not that they're going to fall, but what I will say is maybe Jeff Jarrett is a curse. The only good thing I'll say about the segment at all was when he hit Darby Allin over the head with a guitar. That was the only good part about that. After that, it just kind of fell.
I think that's unanimous, and I think, and it's not really, again, to that point, this is definitely a Tony Khan decision. And I've had this conversation as well. I mean, Tony Khan's got a lot of toys that he's played with. And he's picking up the different action figures from the WWF. Notice I'm not saying WWE. From the WWF and the NWO, WCW days. And he's just playing with these action figures. But I will say that with Warner Brothers Discovery forking over the big bill for the entertainment outlet, we got David Zaslav, which David Zaslav, again, we don't have to go into any kind of discussion. You can go on all the different sites on YouTube or media. But Zaslav is a guy who's run Discovery. That was that whole merger. And look at Discovery. You got 90 Day Fiancé. You got 90 Day this, and you have Dr. Pimple Popper. You have all these reality shows that are scripted, but you don't feel like it is. That is probably the advantage that Tony Khan and David Zaslav have when they come with AEW. And I can tell you what, I don't think this is David Zaslav. I don't think it's a David Zaslav thing. I think this is really a Tony Khan thing. And with David Zaslav letting branches in Warner Brothers being known, whether it's DC or Scooby-Doo or Harry Potter or Discovery, the AEW is literally in its own bubble, and that's fine. But this seems like a Tony Khan decision. This seems like he's got legend. He's got a name on his resume. And I'll take it a step further. You remember when TNA started back in the late 90s, early 2000s? And you really think about it, were those guys old? Or were we just young enough to be like, those are older guys that we've heard of? Because all those guys could still go. You had Scott Hall, you had Kevin Nash, who were still very much in their prime. I don't think they made much.
They were in the back half of their prime at the very least.
Yeah, but they still got the job done. And they were still selling tickets or whatever the admission was at the time.
At the start, there wasn't that many old guys there.
No.
All there was the guys in charge.
No, but now we can look at the apples and oranges comparison as, and I want to know your thoughts on this too, Perez. Now we got Danny Barnes.
Thoughts on Jeff Jarrett?
But yeah, to that point, and I would go as far as saying, because I know you pay attention to a lot. As you said, you watch it all. You pay attention to it all, or as best as you can. You've seen Jeff Jarrett in the past. What do you think the track record's going to go to?
I don't know. I'm confused on leaving WWE and joining AEW for the position that you joined it in.
Fuck Jeff Jarrett.
It doesn't, as of this point in time, doesn't make sense. We obviously have to play the waiting game. I understand that. But can he be an asset? Yeah, because he has experience.
But will he be valuable?
I don't know. Because, again, it's a weird hiring for me. It's not like a hiring of Sting, where obviously at the time we didn't know how much he was going to wrestle. All we were told at the time was one match.
You know, and I remember when...
And Sting has been, at least I would think, a far more popular wrestler than Jeff Jarrett, who has had way more main event spots, way more storylines, and way more opportunities to be this spearhead in professional wrestling.
Right.
And that's not to discredit Jeff Jarrett. But in the trajectory of their career, it's kind of weird that, you know, Jeff Jarrett is here where it kind of feels out of place.
Do you feel like Jeff Jarrett needs AEW more than AEW needs Jeff Jarrett?
Yes. I fully think so. And that's not to discredit Jeff Jarrett. Can he go? From the looks of it, he can. Does he want to? I'm not Jeff Jarrett.
Well, I mean, like, we had a conversation about this the other day, and we because Vince left.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's round it off. Let's go back. Let's circle around the monkey's ass for a minute, because this all has to deal with Vince leaving. At the end of the day, look at what's going on. Look at the way that a lot of ex-WWE stars have left to AEW, and look at the capacity roles that they're in. Are they great in their leadership roles? I would say, yeah. You look at the Big Show. You look at Mark Henry. They're more of an advice. They're more of a counsel, so to speak.
Yeah, but I mean, they're bigger names.
They're bigger names, but does that have everything to do with what Vince was offering? You know, we talked about it.
It does.
Vince had protection with Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett only accepted the Hall of Fame because Jeff Jarrett was getting a huge pay cut. He was getting a huge payday because it is the WWE. The WWE is like Disney. It's a name that is in everybody's household. And if you don't know who the WWE is, at least you can associate with 2 to 3 names. By default, Dwayne Johnson, which a lot of people are confusing Dwayne Johnson for him being a movie star. No, my friends, Dwayne Johnson started as a wrestler first. Which...
The Rock, John Cena, Hulk Hogan. That's it.
That's pretty much it, right? You can't even say Stone Cold.
Yeah.
I think if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, you thought Stone Cold. You thought Bret Hart. You thought Shawn Michaels. You thought Macho Man. And you thought of Dusty Rhodes. Like, the list can go on, but...
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, sure. But if you're just a casual fan... Maybe you could throw The Undertaker's name in there.
Yeah, but I can't throw Jeff Jarrett making that promo, 40 years of the business. I'd be completely fair. Jeff Jarrett, everything he touches turns into complete shit. And I've never cared.
Because he has the King of the Mountain match that Impact still uses to this day.
I mean, great, he's contributed to that legacy, but let's take it a step back. The guy didn't know how to really handle a business. He handled concepts, which you and I can jot down on paper about concepts.
So it really isn't saying much to Jeff Jarrett.
Right, it's not saying much to Jeff Jarrett. Is he a contributor? Of course. Every wrestler who steps between those ropes is a contributor.
Yeah, and even Vince, he's a contributor.
Right.
But also to circle back to what you were saying, that it's what happened to Vince is a big shaker, but it's even bigger for people like MLW, who, for those who don't know, MLW is Major League Wrestling, who's owned by Court Bauer. And before Vince decided to retire, MLW and Court Bauer wants to sue WWE, and still does, because in their minds, Vince McMahon specifically was making a monopoly, which I'm not sure the exact specifics, but I can see why Court Bauer would be upset.
Well, I mean, with a monopoly, this is what would trend as monopoly, and I don't think MLW or whatever
Major League Wrestling.
I don't think they're going to win it, because let's look at Disney. Disney owns Fox, Lucasfilm,
ESPN, even beyond their entertainment, ESPN, Sports Center.
So the only thing that's preventing them from making monopoly, when that whole Fox merger happened, was them taking over their newscast, because their newscast also had the sports. That would make a monopoly. I don't think WWE did that, because let's look at real facts, without going into any kind of statistics or any numbers. But the real hardcore knit and grit is Vince destroyed the territories.
Yes.
There is no monopoly from the territories, because the territories didn't make as much money as, let's say, a Vince McMahon.
Right.
And I'm not saying Junior. Senior was the one who's really started to
He
get his
built
hand
those
into
bridges.
it. Right. It was Junior who said, I'm Barnum and Bailey, let's make this shit mainstream. So with that being said, with Jeff Jarrett and this mainstream focus, do you see Jeff Jarrett as a potential threat to AEW? Or
No. He's just another piece on the wheel.
Okay.
Which, again, that's not to disrespect Jeff Jarrett.
They traded CM Punk for Jeff Jarrett. It ain't saying much.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a downgrade for them. I'm going to be completely
Yeah,
fair. It's a
I
downgrade.
agree.
I think they went to the Rolls Royce and said, you know what, we need better gas mileage than we need a fancy car.
Or it's like they had the Rolls Royce and they only found out it's just a pretty car.
Well,
Which, in my opinion, is just a pretty car.
Well, and I think let's go back to this promo. I mean, like, this promo didn't make sense. We all watched it together.
Yeah, it's like part of it did.
It's an AEW. I guess the best answer. It's an AEW. MJF is AEW. I will say that right now. I don't care who's holding that AEW World Championship. I don't care who's really next in line after the fact of that feud. I think in the apples and oranges comparison, Maxwell Jacob Friedman is doing exactly what a lot of wrestling is lacking. And I mean all of wrestling. Character and a vision.
The youth.
And the youth. You look at Ric Flair. He reminds me of a young Ric Flair. And a young Dusty Rhodes, heel Dusty Rhodes. And a heel character. He's going to make a great babyface. He's going to make just this perfect...
He's already on his way there.
He's already... Right. They've already painted the strap, like the image. And I think with AEW right now, going through what they're going through, I mean, we've already seen the vignettes of the Bucks and Omega coming back. I think that's going to be full gear next Saturday. You know, I think they're going to come back. They've waited a whole month to come back and debut at a pay-per-view. Make it full gear. We're going to see them. But I think the weird spell that AEW is going through... I don't know if that's going to alleviate anything, and maybe that's what Jeff Jarrett is. Maybe Jeff Jarrett's a Band-Aid. But to be the director of whatever the hell doesn't make any sense to me, to your credit, Perez. It's very weird. It's
weird.
It's confusing.
Because, imagine if he had the same position that he had in WWE, which I wouldn't doubt is very similar. AEW only has 1 to 2, even 3 live shows a week. So really, what is he creative director of? Like, Tony Khan is obviously, he's the big boss. A lot of it is in his hands. Does he have a team? Of course he does. They all kind of do the same thing. So what is Jeff Jarrett here for?
I honestly, and that's the thing too. For me, we hear that Chris Jericho, John Moxley. Yeah, I mean, and you hear these names that have been spun out. Like, John Moxley just signed a 5-year extension.
Yeah, Jericho
signed a 3-year extension.
Yeah.
Daniel Bryan, who the hell knows, but these are 3 names that have come up in conversation of being positive locker room leaders.
And the Bucks are getting teased to come back.
The
Bucks and Kenny, they're getting teased to come back.
Well, they're still at the EVP
and
level.
Tony Khan, I don't think, is going to turn his back on those 3.
No, and he's the one that approached them.
Exactly.
Well,
and again, he's going to side with them over CM Punk, who came in later.
Well, and so to Tony Khan's credit, this is coming from because I'm a manager at where I work. To Tony Khan's credit, even though it looks bad, who do you side with? You side with the people that you have to put food on their table, and you come up with the great decisions to make set rules and set matches and set things.
AEW was able to sell out the United Center off of a rumor. Because here's the thing. Whether or not a year ago that rumor was true. Let's go back a year and some change. Let's say that rumor was just a rumor and that's all it was. And CM Punk didn't come back. Guess what? Guess who gets the last laugh at the end of the day?
Oh, Tony, absolutely.
AEW.
And
because they made all that money.
And guess what, to your point, it's still sold out.
It's sold out.
I think, but that's the worst thing about wrestling right now is there's dirt sheets and there's rap sheets, and the fact that
it's a gift and a curse.
It is.
It's a gift and a curse.
It is.
It's more curse than a gift, but there are, at the time, a year ago and some change when CM Punk came back. I mean, it was for a lot of people the best moment in pro wrestling history because he was gone for 7 years. No one ever thought he was actually going to come back. I knew for a long time he was always going to come back.
Especially to some startup.
But like, you know, he came back. He had a really good run for a few months. And then all of a sudden, just like...
Just went away.
Just like that.
It just stopped.
Sorry, Akila. Come here, baby.
And...
It poofed. It went away.
It just, like, out of nowhere, it was just bad. Like, it turned so bad. And then oh, by the way, let's not, like, forget the fact that, like, you know who came back to Dynamite on Wednesday? Because it wasn't CM Punk.
Jeff Jarrett.
No.
Who came back to Dynamite? I only watched that one part. I'll be honest. I mean, to be completely fair, I only saw that one part.
Colt Cabana.
That is true, but
hang on,
but you can't. Hang on to what? You can't because.
But that is an ROH. That's not an AEW. Even though ROH is still under the umbrella.
It's Colt Cabana.
Colt Cabana was the one that came back. Colt Cabana, the guy that CM Punk trashed on the scrum.
The first person he trashed. Possibly second.
Out of nowhere.
Well, I think.
I don't care how tired you are. I don't care how beat you are.
I don't care how old you are.
But you came after a guy that wasn't even on that show.
I think, you know, the magic of... And this is the problem, and this is what it comes back to when I said that David Zaslav owning Discovery. Tony Khan has a magical way of making everything work shoot.
Is it for better or for worse?
For better or for worse. So...
By hook or by crook.
There is... Exactly. I really feel in my heart of hearts, because there's a big rumor out there now saying that CM Punk's contract isn't bought out. And he ain't going nowhere. So...
And obviously, who wants him now?
Well, I don't...
CM Punk's contract, whether it's going to be bought out or not, guess what? He ain't coming back. He is not coming back. At least...
Here's the bigger question. Is he even welcomed back?
The locker room in AEW has been very, very vocal about CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
Jericho. Britt Baker, I don't know if you saw what she said.
No, I'm not familiar, but I'm sure these fans want to hear what she had said at some point.
You have to do your research.
I guess so. Do your research, guys.
But, like, you know...
She sound like she trashed him pretty good.
She did.
Mm-hmm.
But Jericho was so on the nose. And... I absolutely loved what CM Punk stood for when he was younger. Because he did have a chip on his shoulder. Because he came from nothing and he built something. And then he got older. And he still acts like he has this chip on his shoulder. He earned so much respect from a lot of people walking out on WWE.
And people still hang on.
But
with
like
bated breath of
people,
what he said in that pipe bomb.
So, people either but the thing is, a lot of the stuff that he said in the pipe bomb doesn't stand true anymore.
So
because Triple H is behind the wheel of the bus. And it's on a course correction.
Actually, let's put it this way, because I think in recent reports that we've seen that it almost sounds like there's a softening of stance. So let's go ahead and do another under and over. Do we see a real traditional 8-year hiatus being done from one company? His comeback was in professional wrestling 7 years ago, but the real comeback comes in the form of a Royal Rumble return.
CM Punk doesn't come back to WWE.
Under, over?
No chance.
Over or under?
No chance.
Okay.
No chance.
No chance.
Because here's the thing. Because here's the thing, right? Famously known, CM Punk and Hunter hate. I mean, hate.
I mean, sure, but
And hate's an understatement. They despise each other.
But I mean, let's look at back. Well, if we're going to circle around the monkey's ass, there are lessons.
I love saying that.
I do, but it comes back to it. Vince and Triple H, that relationship, that T'Challa to his father relationship, so to speak. We cannot do it this way.
CM Punk will never.
You don't think Triple H made amends?
CM Punk will no.
Not with Punk.
No.
Not with Punk, at least.
It's
Everybody
not even
else.
the fact that Triple H won't be willing to make amends. It's that CM Punk has his head so far up his own ass that he still acts like he has this chip on his shoulder, like he's still in his 20s. Like he's still starting out. If you're in your 20s and you're just starting out, yeah, all right, you have a chip on your shoulder because you have something to prove.
So we got
CM Punk proved himself. CM Punk proved himself. You want to sit there and act like you still have the chip on your shoulder? He will never change.
Well, no,
that will never change. He's in his mid 40s, dude. Once you reach your mid 40s and you have that mindset, that's it.
Well,
CM Punk will not. Triple H, I think it really just depends on how Triple H is feeling. And if Triple H feels like it is 100% best for business, ha 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 ha, the Authority 2014. I feel like if Triple H feels it's best for business, he will reach out.
So
Phil Brooks won't accept it.
So let's put it this way, because they did try that relationship before. When WWE asked them, and I think Fox asked them to come back and do that show. Let's take this a step.
Yeah, but he worked under Fox.
Right, but let's take it. But money talks and bullshit walks.
Not
Does the but hang on.
A lot of people like to say that.
So let's put this out there in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say hypothetically there's an offer that can't be refused.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Phil Brooks, CM Punk, takes the offer
No.
and works for Triple H and his WWE?
No.
I don't
Absolutely
So
not.
we're gonna go under with this one. Okay.
For a long time, and you guys know this for a long time, after CM Punk walked out on WWE, I said for a long time, mark my words, he'll be back in wrestling at some point. And there was a lot of people who didn't believe me. There's a lot of people who strongly disagreed with me. Perez was one of those people.
But I think to that point, when you mean wrestling, you mean wrestling. You didn't mean WWE.
I wasn't specific about if he was going to be back with WWE or anything else. No, I specifically said you will see him wrestle again. He will be back in pro wrestling. And 7 years later, what happened? He came back. And that's the thing. That he came back. Now, a year later, 8 years after he walked out on WWE, I will say that I don't think he will be back. I don't think he will. I do not think.
So I think
he will wrestle again.
So I think we've proven that both Danny Barnes and Perez can see eye on some points. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I'm gonna say there's an offer on the table, because let's face it, if there is a contract buyout and Tony Khan really does heed on those fuck WWE notions. Remember, Cody Rhodes left. Cody left. What's to say Triple H doesn't say, hey, because again, Cody didn't leave because of CM Punk. Cody left, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. He was growing his family. The money probably wasn't enough. And let's be honest, Tony Khan is still bankrolling from Shahid Khan, who's the father of the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is an NFL franchise that has been in existence since the 80s, since the 70s, I should say.
I think Cody was always supposed to go back to WWE, and he just had to.
And the difference, he didn't leave on bad terms.
Right, but not everybody.
Nowhere near.
But look at what Rocky Johnson did. Rocky Johnson left on terrible terms, and he's a WWE Hall of Famer.
But the Hall of Fame is a gimmick.
It's a gimmick, but the fact that Vince was willing,
no one.
And I say this, the fact that Vince was willing to work with someone that really fucked him over, because if you really think about it, we watch Young Rock. There is truth behind what that is said. If Vince McMahon was really trying to settle for Saudi Arabia territory to bring in that market, and Rocky was trying to double book himself. And the fact that we can look at 20 years later that Rocky Johnson's now in the Hall of Fame, do we see Triple H making that amendment. And the reason why I ask this because I really do feel in my heart of hearts the best way to learn is if we learn our lesson. The beautiful thing about grief is it doesn't take how long. You can't put a time limit on it, but I don't think Tony Khan is going to be smart to put a no-compete clause on CM Punk. I don't think he's going to be that smart. I think
CM Punk's not coming back. Period. Point blank.
Well, even if
CM Punk will not come back.
So we're going to go under. So I'm going to go over and say Royal Rumble.
There is no under or over. No. There is no under or over. There is no under or over with CM Punk.
You're on your own on this.
No, and I know it would be. And the reason why I say that is because, I base it on the fact that CM Punk caught the bug. I'm not saying he's in the greatest shape because, again, he had gotten himself hurt again against Jon Moxley in the World Heavyweight Championship match for the AEW, title. And he would have had to leave again, and there would have been another interim championship. I mean, that alone is its own bullshit right there. But I'll be completely fair. I mean, the fact of the matter is, with CM Punk doing what he did, at this point, CM Punk is just there for the money. He's working with Stephen Amell on his show Heels. It sounds like he's doing, of course, Stephen Amell's a huge professional wrestling fan.
Crappy comic books he wants to write.
Well, I don't think he's even writing those. He wrote them more for Marvel
probably
than anything.
Crappy anyways.
I don't know. And then with that, but with that being said, it's okay to be a fan, but to really hone the craft and understand your craft. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm in the minority. But then we look at things like Bray Wyatt, we look at things like Sting, and we look at all these big names. I mean, for God's sake, look at what,
Chris Jericho's another one. Chris Jericho got disrespected by someone he was loyal to for 20-some years. So what are the odds? I think it'd be higher odds that Jericho would come back.
Jericho would come back.
Jericho would come back.
Are you kidding me? He signed the extension, but given the right opportunity, Jericho would definitely go back.
Well, and I think to that point, and if I'm going to do fantasy booking, I'm going to go as far as saying fantasy dream match, because there's a select few of us who still collect action figures, and we know that the peg shelves have WWE and AEW right next to each other. Maybe down the road, and I know it'll never happen, it'll be hell it'll be an ice ball thrown in hell chance, and WrestleMania to me is a celebration of all things wrestling. I would love to see WWE title versus AEW title versus Impact title. Just celebrate wrestling. It's snowball's chance now.
I've said it. With Forbidden Door, I understand it's a gimmick. People like to laugh at the term Forbidden Door, but I'm telling you, I think it will be so, one, amazing, but two, super, super profitable if they open that Forbidden Door for WWE and AEW.
For a moment.
And the main event match is gotta be Kenny Omega versus Roman Reigns.
Absolutely.
It's gotta be. That's the main event. The second main event is gotta be the Usos versus the New Day versus the Young Bucks versus one other team. Now I don't care from where.
Well, I know, and I'm gonna throw out another snowball's chance in hell, but
House of Black.
Yeah, well, maybe against the Wyatt family, the new Well, I guess at this point, the new faction of the Wyatt. But
TNA don't got nobody.
Was it just me when
Impact don't got nobody?
When Kenny's gimmick was the belt collector? Was it just me, or did you feel a little bit dirty and say, I really do hope he jumps?
That would have been the perfect opportunity for WWE to be like, let's work together for at least one pay-per-view. Call it a day. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Just like the Tokyo Dome in 2018, where Jericho had the one match.
But the problem...
To see how it went.
The problem with them calling... And obviously it was a gimmick. The Forbidden Door pay-per-view was a gimmick, 100%. Because NJPW and AEW were already working together at the time.
New Japan Pro Wrestling.
For them to be like, Forbidden Door, it's been busted wide open. It's been open.
Impact.
You can't...
And nobody has given Impact their flowers.
They've
done it for years. Impact Wrestling has always said, we don't want to build those. We don't want to burn those bridges like WWE has. They're willing to work with whatever territory if it benefited both sides. But not one person in the entire time that Impact has done it has they gone to Scott D'Amore and say, thank you, Scott, for having this mindset when people over here don't even think that's possible.
Well, I mean, look at the Forbidden Door. If we're going to talk about
Thank
WWE,
you, Scott D'Amore, for doing that.
Let's tap into the Forbidden Door with WWE and AEW and actually Impact. The Rock did a Hall of Fame speech for. I don't remember if it was Kurt Angle or it was one of the newer Hall of Fame inductees, but The Rock was even on the show. Oh, you know who it was? It was Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock. He was there doing a speech. So I think there is an acknowledgement that it's not just WWE, and I think Triple H knows that, which is why I thank Triple H. And again, to kind of wrap everything up in one big bow, I think this has been the craziest year for professional wrestling. The fact that we had CM Punk in a calendar year, pretty much from year. Actually, I can't say calendar year, but from
it wasn't even a full year.
It wasn't even a full year.
Kenny was almost gone.
Vince McMahon retired. This has just been a crazy year for just professional wrestling.
Backstage drama.
Man, even we were being more consistent with our stuff.
I would go as far as saying
Impact still only had 10 viewers. And they haven't even trended that hard this year. Bullet Club went to Impact Wrestling. Out of all the places Bullet Club have worked before, they say, you know what, I'm going to go to Impact Wrestling and try to shake up.
But you know what,
Impact.
my thing is, and you know,
no,
Danny,
it didn't work.
You know, my thing is, and
Danny
Barnes loves these MCU comparisons, and we've talked about this behind the camera, behind closed doors.
This is Crisis on Infinite.
No, but you'll like this one. The Bullet Club is like the Avengers, and I'm not talking about the main roster. I'm talking about factions. You got the West Coast Avengers, you have the Dark Avengers, you have the Young Avengers, you have the main Avengers. The main Avengers, right now, if I'm going to be completely fair, they're on WWE. You got Finn Balor. Who would have thought the OC would have come back? Perez, you and I have had this conversation.
I was shocked.
We were shocked. My jaw was dropped.
That came very out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere!
Because I saw a report literally that day, the night they came back, and next thing I know, I had Raw on just for shits and gigs.
What was the report?
That they were in talks. That there was it was
a
rumor that they were in talks. But I literally saw it the same day. I turned on Raw for shits and giggles, and all of a sudden, they're coming out. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, but not even that. Let's face it, the OC's not coming back as just a tag team. Carl Anderson has his singles match. And a damn good singles match, because it wasn't like, hey, let's get this guy disqualified to protect the character. This guy legit had a fucking chance. Which,
he
again,
proved himself.
Aquila is making a very special guest appearance on the Journey podcast.
That's one cheaper.
It's weird because the report I saw was that they were happy to be back in New Japan. They were going to go to Japan, especially because Carl Anderson has the never open weight, and he was already booked to face Hikuleo.
This is going to be our honorary topic of conversation, but do you see Carl Anderson defend that championship? I'm going to say no. I think WWE's got such a strong...
I think he vacates it at some point.
I think Triple H, in my heart of hearts, I think he would love to have that belt defended at some point in time, because you guys remember that whole, well, if we're going to work with anybody, it's got to be a 10-year plan. So I think if Triple H at some point wants to do a Forbidden Door gimmick, I think they'll first try with New Japan.
I think under Vince's regime, I think the 10-year plan would have happened. But I think Triple H has more of a level head, and maybe it's not a 10-year plan. Maybe for Triple H, listen, it can't, for something like that, for WWE to be working with some other company, one is a very far-fetched idea to begin with already, because we're so used to them just working inside their own bubble.
Right.
I'm not saying make it 10 years, but I'm also not saying make it 1 year. Something like that. WWE with New Japan, or even something as small as Impact or AEW. Obviously, AEW is not small, but it's it's not as big as WWE.
But I mean,
It is bigger than Impact.
But let's
right?
face it.
But I think for something like that, it needs to be a long-term thing because there are so many unbelievably good talents, men and women alike, in all of those companies that you want to see match after match after match that you thought you would never see.
So,
Because let's be real here. Personally, this is me 100% being a fanboy, like my high school freshman year fanboy. I would absolutely love to see Seth frickin' Rollins versus Jon Moxley.
So I think
Not Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose.
no. Well, I think
Seth Rollins versus Jon Moxley.
I-
That's a different
well,
match.
and I think we're getting closer to that reality. And the reason why I say that is because the Great Muta versus Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
Can we? That will be another honorary, mention
Of the
because
Forbidden Door
where
gimmick.
I think honestly, I think we're looking at WrestleMania, and I think we're getting closer. I think we're getting closer to some of the biggest stars from, and I think he's going to work with Japanese culture first, only because there is a working relationship with the Japanese.
Yeah, I said that.
well, all right.
So to that point,
Let's wrap this up because these dogs are being very needy. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to ask the final question. Do we see at some point WWE finally pull the trigger on a real Forbidden Door event? A real Forbidden Door deal?
I can only hope so.
I'm going to say
I hope. I want it.
Yes
to
or no?
happen. No.
Not even eventually.
Because again, unfortunately we've been conditioned to think that.
I'm going to say that Triple H is doing a lot better than Vince. And again, it goes back to that Black Panther reference. I think not this year, because we have to finish out this year under what Vince had scheduled. But I see great things, if not next year, 2024, 2025. Honestly.
Isn't next year not Hollywood? The one after, isn't that 40?
41 will be next year. You're talking about for WrestleMania, it'll be 40. 40 will be this coming up. And
No,
the one after Hollywood.
This one's 39.
So the
39.
next one is
and
40.
Philadelphia would be 40. Yes. In Philadelphia would be 40, which I would love to go to.
Same.
I think at the very least, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. They will pull the trigger on doing a real Forbidden Door deal, however long term they decide, up to them, whatever. I think we'll at least see it by 45, WrestleMania 45.
I think the bigger question is, and it's a question that we can't answer. I think it's more or less it's going to happen. It's who it's going to happen with, and I think that's to be TBD. I think that's going to be
For
determined.
sure, it's got to be the Bucks. Because again, they almost signed with WWE.
Personally, I think they should. At some point, I really think they should. If they actually let their contract expire in 2024 with AEW, I think they absolutely should jump ship.
I think the amount of shit that they
Because imagine just the match with the Bucks versus the Usos now. Just them.
And I think that's a better Mania match than the Bucks and the New Day. Because I'm not the biggest fan of Xavier Woods in ring work.
Right, well, and the good thing about Triple H not doing what he's doing, because look, Vince would have said Brothers of Destruction versus Degeneration X. I'm glad that that's not a thing. Maybe back when
they were in their
prime.
Well,
But
Seth has teased multiple times that he wants a match with Kenny Omega.
And Will Ospreay.
Make it happen.
I don't see why not. I mean, the fact that Mickie James was acknowledged as the Impact Champion, I mean, granted she didn't win that Royal Rumble match, but the fact that
Good point.
it's that there is an acknowledgement that it's very weird.
That's
but
another reason as to add on to why at some point they could do an actual Forbidden Door deal. Because she was signed, and she still is, at least to my knowledge, with Impact.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Molina was there.
I think there's a lot to be said in the future. And, I mean, to wrap up JPW's podcast in a heartbeat, which is, I feel like this is one of probably the best successful podcasts, and more to come, obviously, dealing with what we're dealing with. I think...
I'm going to say this real quick before
yeah, you're fine.
Cliffhangers mentioned the movie Black Panther. Black Panther, Marvel Studios, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, out November 11th. Not a sponsor.
Next weekend.
Yeah.
And
we're not going to get into a 30-minute conversation about Black Panther.
But I think for a moment, I think for like a good minute, I think it's worth saying that this year, successfully, if this might be the last one, which I'm hoping it's not before the end of the year, if this had to be the last one, I'm going to say this has probably been one of the most successful years that not just professional wrestling has, but look at the impact that we've had on a lot of people. And Ground Zero is coming over. It's going to be an event that changes the history books for us. December 3rd, guys. I can't wait to see you there.
Again, December 3rd is not posting date. It's just the date of the actual event. In any case, this has been the Journey Podcast Wrestling. I have been Danny Barnes. This has been Rocket.
One cliffhanger.
Perez. Follow me on social media.
He's doing it for the clout. We'll see you guys next time.